Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast, where real students are doing real deals in the world of multifamily real estate. I'm Vince Gethings, the owner of the Wheelwell Profits Academy. Listen in as we dive into the journeys of driven individuals who are turning their dreams into reality. These people are just like you, taking action and making things happen. If you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and if you're ready to take action, check us out at wheelwellprofits.com to learn more about our incredible community. Let's get started.
This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of make it happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I am joined by my co-host who's looking good today, my brosif Joshua Ryan Rusin, community director, Jake and Gino. Josh, how you doing today?
Gino, doing well, man. Excited. I had a trip to Nashville yesterday, and in the 3-hour commute each way, listened to a lot of Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, little Earl Nightingale. So getting back to the basics, right? Working on my mindset, and it was a reminder of how those simple principles can have such a profound impact on your life. So coming off excited about that. Gino, what's going on in your world over there in St. Augustine?
Josh, I got to ask you a question. Who do you like out of all those the most? Who do you like? You like Jim, Zig? Who do you like the most? Les?
Jim Rohn, my absolute favorite. So his book, 12 Pillars, was my first self-development book I ever read. And it had such an impact. He's able to state stuff so eloquently and so simply that even a child could understand it, but the principles are so important and really just the foundation of living life to the fullest.
I like Zig. I think Jim Rohn, when you're a little bit more advanced, you have a little bit more personal development. I think it's like, I don't want to say watered down, but it's like basic stuff. You know what I mean? Like, self-education, formal education. If you listen to Zig, he actually has a lot of great sales advice, and he's just an easy person to listen to. His storytelling is amazing, and he's just an awesome guy. They're both really great. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I think Zig Ziglar, for anyone looking out there for sales, really, and to pivot to our guest today, if you're looking to try to sell a broker, I think you're better off going to listen to Zig Ziglar, and he'll teach you how to sell. I mean, it's just amazing. He's got so many techniques, and he's just flawless when he speaks.
Wow, love it. Speaking of today's guest, we have Tyler Chesser. So he's the founder and president of the Chesser Companies, a commercial real estate firm that focuses on real estate investment, brokerage, and coaching for real estate investors. He's an experienced multifamily real estate investor and has experienced the success and failures of building a real estate portfolio. Tyler is also the co-founder of CF Capital LLC, a real estate syndication firm, which focuses on acquiring and repositioning multifamily assets in the Southeast United States and provides institutional quality services to its residents and outsized returns to its investment partners. Welcome to the show, Tyler. How you doing today?
Thank you, gentlemen. Hey, I wanted to, I got to talk about what we were just talking about, Earl Nightingale. I got to throw in, my hat in the ring for Earl Nightingale. I was just listening to The Strangest Secret in the World. If your listeners haven't heard that, it's a 30-minute audio. It's a game changer as well. Earl is the man. They're, three great guys there, but you got to develop your mindset. You got to develop your skills, but it's great to be on the show with you guys.
Very excited to have you here. All right. So you got a lot going on in your bio here, and you're young as well. Tyler, for the listeners, how old are you?
30.
30 and making it happen. Okay. So let's talk about your journey to real estate, why real estate, how you got to where you are. Let's start unpacking it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to college for marketing because when I was in college, I was actually doing sales for Sears, believe it or not. I was in retail. I was selling TVs, and I only did it just because I heard it was a good way to make money. And when I was doing it, I started to learn about branding. I learned why people were more drawn to a Sony television or a Samsung television than, others. And I was very intrigued by that. So I started to dig into branding. And ultimately, my dream job became, hey, I wanted to be the brand manager of Nike, because as a kid, I was so obsessed with Nike. And, why were a Nike shoes so much more expensive than, some shoe that didn't have the swoosh on it? So I went to school for marketing because I was fascinated with the psychological aspects behind business. Ended up getting into marketing in the corporate realm and was, kind of growing there. I was doing international marketing for a Fortune 500 company. And as I got into that practice, it was great because I was scratching my itch in terms of my interest of that profession. But then I learned about some of the corporate aspects of, the political side of things. And it started to kind of wear on me, and I started to get really irritated with it. So I started to look at, well, what are my other options here? And it was kind of a trying time. My early 20s, I was trying to figure out, well, wait a minute. Everything that's been told to me was go to school, get good grades, get a good job. And I felt like I did that, but I also felt like kind of depressed, thinking like, wow, I have to do this for, 40, 50 more years and kind of go through this thing where, I really just got to kiss ass to get where I wanted to go. And I didn't want to do that. And so,
Right.
yeah, go ahead.
No. So to be in your early to mid 20s and have the grind start to wear on you, people that doesn't normally hit till their 40s to 50s before it's
Right.
too late. What caused that, we'll call it burnout or to look elsewhere? And, where did you start looking from there?
I mean, I was always a little bit of a rebellious person growing up. Not crazy rebellious, but I just wasn't willing to accept it. And I looked around and I'm like, this can't be the only answer. Because most people said, well, it is just is what it is. Your college days, your high school days are the best days of your life. And, that's passed you up now. So you just have to accept this. But I just started to get like, you know what, I'm not going to accept that. And I looked around and I said, you know what, there's got to be another answer. I did not know what that answer was. And so when I was in college, I actually almost did this internship with Northwestern Mutual, which many of your listeners may be familiar with. They actually have a great internship. But one of the exercises they had me do was write out my top 150. What is my circle of influence? Like, who do I know, or who's my 1 to 2 degree separation, within my network? And I did that, but I went and revisited that list as I was trying to make this decision of like, what else could I do? And I just started making calls like, hey, you mind having lunch with me? Like, here's what I'm going through. And I ultimately kind of ran into some folks who are involved in real estate. And so that's kind of how I really got my foot in the door.
Gotcha. Okay. So you find real estate. What capacity were they in? What intrigued you about it? And where did you go from there?
Yeah, so the person that really kind of got me intrigued was a commercial real estate broker. And, we just kind of talked about that side of the business. And, with that said, what I did was I got my license and I went ahead and started to be involved in real estate on the selling side, on the side. I was actually doing it nights and weekends, like going after to get my license, learning. I actually hired a coach at that time. I was kind of started to read books. I was, actually it was interesting because when I graduated college, I felt like I had kind of retired from, reading and learning and all that stuff. But then I was like, wait a minute. Once I read Think and Grow Rich, I was like, wow, there's so much more here. And it just became this snowball that I was addicted to. And so that's kind of how I got started, was on the selling side. And then of course I read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I said, wow, I can actually put my money to work in other ways that can leverage my time. It can leverage my resources. And so that's how I got involved in investing, which happened, a couple of years after that.
So what side do you like better? Do you like the selling side or the investing side?
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, when I got started on the investing side, I definitely like the selling side a lot better because it was hard, man. I had some sleepless nights for sure. I made a ton of mistakes. I lost a lot of money. But I think overall it just depends. In both sides, I'm building long-term relationships. I'm focused on long-term results. So nothing really comes quickly. I mean, it depends. I mean, there's days where I definitely appreciate the selling side more. There's days where I appreciate the investing side more because it is all about building wealth. It's about, delivering value. So I don't know. It's a little bit, I'm trying to not scoot around your answer, but it just depends on the day.
I was gonna say he sounds like a politician, Josh. He's scooting and scatting. And so let me drill down deeper. What do you think? Because I don't really think we can say there's any mistakes or anything big. Because looking back, you didn't know what you didn't know. But what could you have avoided as an investor? What could you have done differently? Maybe get educated. Maybe find a mentor. Maybe a different market. Maybe bringing more capital. What could you have done differently back then, a couple of years ago?
Well, I definitely didn't have a great team. Like when I went into it, when I learned the Rich Dad Poor Dad thing, I was like, oh my God, I have to invest in real estate. Got to do it. So I was like, I'll just figure it out later. So the first deal I did, my due diligence was lacking significantly. I mean, I had like a single family home inspector, deal. It was a small multifamily deal, but I missed so many things. I undercapitalized my capital expenditure budget tremendously. I didn't realize how many things could go wrong. Like, what are the worst case scenarios to go in? So I probably could have had a mentor. Definitely could have had a better team. I could have had a better manager. I was not a good manager. I'm glad that I had the experience of doing that. But then, looking back, I mean, obviously I had to move into hiring, property management, doing all that good stuff. So I actually failed there too. I mean, I hired a bad property manager. Then I hired another bad property manager. And then finally I got a good one. So I don't know. Those are just a few things.
Josh, I got to tell you this story, and I'll share it with you, Tyler. Picture this. I'm out there playing tennis with my daughter. She's now 14 years old. We first go out there. I'm actually not bad. I'm pretty good. But I'm trying to teach her. And how do I hold my forehand? I've been doing it for 30 years. I don't really know. How do I serve? I don't really know. The backhand, I'm not really sure how to teach her. And it's not fun. So I say to myself, I think I should probably spend money and get a coach, get someone to train her hourly. I could watch YouTube videos, right, Josh? But that's just laborious and it's not fun. So what I ended up doing about a year ago, I got her lessons. And fast forward a year later, she's about 60% of my level. It's a lot of fun. She knows exactly how to hit a forehand. She doesn't have any bad habits that I probably would have taught her. So to me, in every aspect of your life, whether it's real estate education, whether it's playing a sport, whether it's, I'll give you another example, Josh. My son is 17 years old. The fear of teaching a kid how to drive, I'm like, I ain't getting in the car with this kid. My daughter's 20, so I've done it with her. I actually got him driving lessons, and his instructor actually told me he can tell a kid who's learned with his parents, and when he comes and learns with him, that he has to teach and unteach them all the bad habits that their parents have taught them. Just because you think you know how to invest in real estate, you know how to drive a car, doesn't mean you're doing it the right way. In any aspect of your life, if you want to dramatically cut your learning curve like Tyler wanted to, or make less mistakes like Tyler did, don't be afraid to go out there and seek somebody who's done it before. Whether it's driving a car, hitting a backhand, I think it'll be more pleasurable. I think you get it a lot quicker, and I think you'll save a ton of mistakes and or time and or money in any endeavor. What do you think about that, Josh?
I love it. I mean, that's definitely applicable. You look at the people that are the highest level in any industry. So you look at basketball, right? They all have coaches, any kind of sports. Even the highest level CEOs all have coaches. And like Tyler mentioned, he was like, after college, I thought my educational career was done. That's a sad thought, to think that after that, nobody's learning a day in their life. And the most successful are ones that continue to educate, that realize there's next levels. And it's a true principle. So definitely a lot to take from that one.
Josh, it's important. Commencement means after your commencement speech or commencement, that's the beginning, not the end. You're commencing your education. That's what I thought college was supposed to be, a stepping stone into life. But nowadays people look at college as a death bell. Once you're done with college, no more learning. So that's really important.
It's crazy to me that most people don't ever read a book or pick up a book after college. I mean, it's like an astounding percentage. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, but the other thing too that I feel like in the beginning that I didn't do was ask enough questions. I didn't have enough humility to show people that I didn't know everything. I wanted people to think that I was this, deeply experienced investor. And so I wouldn't ask these questions, and then they would be deeply painful, either financially or otherwise, that I couldn't figure out. And so I ultimately had to be humbled by this experience to then say, all right, I don't know everything. And now that I know immensely more than I did then, I don't know. I feel like there's more of an information gap that I've been able to discover. It's like I know what I don't know, and now I'm willing to ask those questions. So I think that's important as well.
It's crazy because leaders who become leaders, as they get more experience, they talk less. That's the amazing. Life is so full of ironies, right? In the beginning, you want to show yourself, those will be exalted will be humbled, and those who are humbled will be exalted, right? It's just so true that in the beginning, you think you know it all, but as you grow and you become a leader, you start talking a lot less. You start taking in information because everyone has something important to say. And if you can decipher, information that's wise from everybody, I think that's truly important. But as you start out, it's so true. And I want to jump into the whole broker experience that you have. But that's important when you're dealing with real estate, when you're negotiating real estate. Just be quiet. Let the other side speak. Find the value. You're trying to buy a property from somebody. Why are they trying to sell it? Don't think it's just because it's only a high price. Maybe they're going into a 1031 buying another property. Maybe they're just burned out. Maybe they hate multifamily real estate. Maybe they're in a partnership that they can't stand. So that's I'm glad you said that. Let's segue into that. As a broker, what do you see buyers and sellers? What are the big mistakes you see them committing?
I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest thing, like, you're talking about negotiation. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
always advise my clients, we don't want to start the negotiation. I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear what is the offer from the other side of the table first, because if we get started, I mean, we could be either leaving a ton of money on the table or putting way too much money on the table. That's one thing. And it
Mm-hmm.
comes with all the terms. I mean, we're not just talking price. So I always want to know more. I want to ask more questions. I want to hear more than rather me, just talk too much. I think that's one of the big things people need to be advised on. But I think the other thing too is just having an understanding of where we are in the marketplace. I mean, I get a lot of people will reach out and say, "Hey, man, I haven't heard from you in a little bit. Where's the deals?" I mean, honestly, guys, like at the end of the day, right now, the marketplace is extremely tight. You have to be very patient. You do want to be diligent, of course, but if you over prod your broker, they're going to get a little bit irritated with you, especially right now. There's not deals falling from the trees left and right. So while being patient, obviously you want to be diligent, but don't overdo it. I think that's one of the big things right now.
So how do you build that relationship with the broker? Give me some tips on, what can Gino or Josh say to start the relationship with Tyler?
I think just reaching out. I mean, I don't know. I just think just be yourself. Don't have to, create your script and read exactly from your script when you reach out to a broker. Just be yourself. Hey, here's exactly what we're looking to do. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Is it okay if I follow up with you on this type of a basis, just to stay top of mind? I think asking those type of questions are important and shows that you respect their time. Because most brokers that are doing a lot of business are, they're very tight on time. Everyone is wanting to have a 30-minute call with them, an hour call with them, a meeting, a lunch, a coffee. So just having that perspective is really important, and just realizing, hey, I just want to stay on top of your mind, and I just want to remind you, here's what I'm looking for. Here's how I can add value for you. Obviously, I'm a closer. That goes without saying. Show that you are a closer. Do what you say you're going to do. But just realizing that time is definitely a scarcity in this side of the business. So that's really important.
So that's important, Josh. Let me recap those few bullet points. Number one, never offer first. Listen to the offer and ask more questions and be open, and don't suspect that you know what they're looking for, because we all have our own motivations. So creating that value. And that next one is, how do you build that relationship? Be respectful of their time, and don't waste their time. They don't want to go out for a cup of coffee. They want to go out and look at deals. So that's the most important thing. Tyler's got enough friends and family members that he can go out to coffee for the rest of his life. If you're going to take him out to a property. Show that you're not a tire kicker. That's really important. Now, what are you looking for in a person like me or Josh?
I'm looking for a closer. I'm looking for somebody who gets it done. Somebody who's got their team in place, who knows how they want to structure their deal, who's not looking to be babied. They're looking for somebody who can add value to their transaction, somebody who can help them negotiate and get, by far the best deal, who can, have somebody pour gasoline on their fire, somebody who really has got a team behind them. They have a mentor. They have, whether it's experience themselves or partners with experience. I think at the end of the day, it's all about closing, but it is about, making business easy to be done. I always say I like to do business with people who are easy to do business with, because then I can add value. If we're doing low level stuff, it's very hard for me to add tremendous value.
Mm-hmm. You keep saying this key word, team. How does an investor build a good team? I mean, and what team members should you have on that team?
Ask questions, ask for referrals, ask other people that you respect, who would they recommend for certain, parts of your team. And so as far as the team that I would suggest, of course, you need a great property manager who's going to help you with due diligence, of course, managing the asset, operating the asset, helping you with underwriting, due diligence, that kind of stuff. If you're not doing the underwriting yourself, you need to have somebody on your team who is. So, if you're going to be doing bigger deals, you need to, bring in analysts, that kind of stuff. You're definitely going to need legal expertise. You're going to need bookkeeping. You're going to need accounting. It's good to, especially if you're growing a larger portfolio, to have your bookkeeper, your accountant interfacing directly with the operation of the property, because sometimes these property managers on the bookkeeping can be a little bit, there's some left to be desired there. So I think that that's important. But yeah, I think it all comes down to really just managing the asset, and just communicating. If you've got investors as well, you need to have somebody interfacing with them. But legal is really important, property management. Of course, as we've talked about, mentor, coach is super important, whether it's on business strategy, whether it's your own mindset, your peak performance. We always need to be tweaked on our mindset. I mean, I know myself. I mean, there's times where I have an inner voice who's telling me, hey, you can't do this or whatever. And I need that course correction as well. So I think it's really important to realize that, sometimes we can be our own worst enemies if we're not careful. So I would say that that's kind of a general infrastructure of a team that your guys should be looking for.
I like that, Josh. Let me just recap that real quick. Number one is the broker, obviously, first and foremost. And we're going to jump into, how to get deals in this market. Number two is legal, really important. See legal as far as maybe if you're doing a syndication, closing attorney, even one who does evictions, because so many different types of attorneys out there. So make sure you have the attorney on your team. The CPA we mentioned, coach, mentor is truly important. If you're not underwriting the deal, make sure you have somebody who's helping you with the underwriting on that deal. Property management is the next one. That's a really key one, that even if you're going to self-manage the property, I would still go out there and speak to property management companies and network with them, because that's one area where you may be able to find deal flow. A property management company may have a property that's not performing well, and they have a seller that you may be able to find one. And also property management companies, when you first go into the market, it's important because they know how to run the market. They know what the expenses are. They know who the vendors are in the market. They have knowledge that you may be able to glean off of them. And obviously the broker. So as the broker here, can you give us some tips on trying to find deals in this tough market? Because we always tell our students, brokers are the key. They're the gateway to properties in this market, because unless you're buying the smaller 20, 30 unit mom and pops, you can use direct mail. Direct mail works on the smaller deals, but on the larger deals, they're a lot more savvy, these sellers, especially now that we're at this part of the market cycle where they know what their assets worth. When we go back into a recession or a recovery phase, direct mail is probably going to be much more prevalent, but right now it's a harder sell right now. So, you have any tips for the listeners on, hey, how can I get some deal flow going?
I mean, there's no easy answer to this, because in my opinion and my experience is it's all about relationships. It's about long-term relationships. And the reason why brokers are the answer in many ways is because they're the ones who are developing the deep, entrenched, real long-term relationships. And otherwise, I mean, that's it. I mean, there's no shortcut to success in this business. So it is all about, how can I add value? How can I show that I'm somebody who's willing to say what I'm going to do, or who's willing to do what I say I'm going to do? And, it's about building those long-term relationships. So you always need to be depositing into those relationships, and don't expect anything directly in return. If it comes quickly, of course, that's great, but just do it and just keep doing it for the long term, and it will work out.
Josh, any more long-term questions before we get to the short answers?
Yeah, Tyler, I have a question for you. So a lot of people hear the importance of having the right team, but I don't think it really hits like it should. When you started your journey, you mentioned there were some negative ramifications for not having the right team members. Dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing, and actually one of the other team members that I failed to mention was contractor. For whatever piece of the project you're looking to do, whether it's a general contractor or a specialist, that's extremely important, just to note. So that's a side note. But the reason why that triggered my memory is the first thing I did incorrectly was I basically underestimated the rehab budget tremendously, as well as didn't realize how quickly it was going to happen. I also didn't realize that the rent roll that I acquired was basically loaded. So I had to go ahead and, get rid of 50% of the non-performing tenants, which was 50% of the entire asset, which was a total disaster. So then I had to go in and rehab these units much quicker than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to do it, over a few year basis, where it all came within the first 3 months. So I spent a tremendous amount more capital than I thought I would. And, it got way worse before it got better. So that was the first thing. I mean, I just didn't evaluate this on a due diligence. And I didn't have the wisdom to really say, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? You always have to be prepared for that worst case scenario. And I just wasn't. I mean, my head was in the sand. And I'm grateful for the experience, because now I know anytime I go into a deal, the worst case scenario is possible. And if it does happen, what is the contingency plan? So I'm grateful for that experience.
Wow, that's a great one. So Tyler, you literally learned from the school of hard knocks, where you're saying if you would have had a mentor or someone to guide you there, you could have avoided some of those mistakes and learned from the school of applied knowledge.
100%. It was all about wisdom. I just did not have the wisdom. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Wow, I like that. Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors.
Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created: buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply.
All right, Tyler, I got some short answer questions here for you. What's your best habit for success and why?
I would say my best habit for success is reading, just because every single time I read, I learn something new or I infer something new. And a lot of times it's reading in between the lines. It's not necessarily, what I get directly from the knowledge, but it causes me to think and, go in different directions. So reading for me has been huge.
Next question is a great segue into that. What's your favorite book you've ever read and why?
Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, for sure, because that was the catalyst. It pushed me in so many directions. I've said this on my podcast, but when I read that book at first, like my eyes were crossed. I had no idea what it was talking about. Didn't know what auto-suggestion was, had no clue about the subconscious mind. So I was so intrigued by that, and it just pushed me in the direction to just read constantly. And I read it every single year. I just read it again this month. So Think and Grow Rich for sure.
I love that. When I first hired a leadership coach, he had me reread the chapter on desire every single morning. I think I did it for like 2 or 3 months. So it's
Wow.
ingrained in my brain. Guys, this show has been filled with some golden nuggets. I want to dive into a few, and I know Gino and Tyler are going to add to it. The first one is, when dealing with brokers, respect their time. It's a limited resource, and busy people have to be very efficient with it. The next one is, say what you're going to do and do what you say, right? That's how you build trust. You build credibility by taking those steps. Another big takeaway was ask more questions and talk less. That's what you find most people that are really experienced do, is they aim to understand, learn the problem they're trying to solve, rather than just throw it all out there. Another one is, there's 2 ways to really go do this: the school of hard knocks, and you can kind of bumble your way through and take your lumps, or finding someone that has the results that you want, building the right team, and learning from the school of applied knowledge. Gino, what do you have to add to that?
Well, I just want to bring my son in here for a second. You know, my son, Michael, Josh, he's 17 years old. He's a senior in high school, and I'm amazed at what he's learned over the last 6 months, just being around the Jake and Gino community. And he's taking a speech class, Josh, in dual enrolled college. I'm like, dude, I was like 40 years old before I started speaking in front of people. So it resonates what Tyler's been saying to me about teamwork, right? About building a team. And for him, he's only 17, but I look at that, he's using the Jake and Gino community. He's using his dad. He's using his uncle to learn all of this stuff and all this material. I mean, how many 17-year-olds know what an amortization table is and interest only and ballooning payments? Most adults don't know that. And it's not like he's any smarter or not. He just has been subjected, and he's been listening to me talk about it for the last year and a half. He's been coming to our boot camps and listening to it. And it might be hard in the beginning, but sooner or later, having that team around you, having those people around you influencing you is going to be really important. And I think that's one thing that I think Tyler talks about: adding value and surrounding yourself with like-minded people and people who you want to be around, which is important. Adding value is what Tyler's been talking about the entire time. Whether you're an investor, whether you're underwriting the deal, whether you're a team member, whether you're the broker, whether you're the buyer, you have to see where you fit in the puzzle, where you add value. That's the beautiful thing about multifamily. There's so many different facets to it, about getting into it. I thought in the beginning, Jake and I, we get in ourselves, we buy our deals, and that's that. But that's not the only way you can get. You have to get into it, or you can get into it. You can get into it so many different ways and options to do that. So I think just by not getting educated, by us not knowing that and starting Jake and Gino, we're like, wow, multifamily is really awesome. There's so many different ways. It's a business. You can figure it out. So those are the big takeaways that I had. Josh, Tyler, you want to add anything to that?
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, I think the big thing, like, I'm so obsessed with this, and I was not obsessed with this before I got into real estate, was personal growth, personal development. You always have to realize, how can I handle the stress? How can I, optimize my own learning? How can I cultivate the appropriate identity? That's what it's all about. It is about building your team, but it's also about becoming the best version of yourself. And I think if you do that, the results follow. And that's what I'm so obsessed with.
Love that. Tyler, how can the listeners get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can find me, anywhere on social media at the Tyler Chesser. Of course, I encourage your listeners to check out Elevate Podcast, which is available on any podcast platform. Gino was a great guest on our show, as well as Jake. And, you can reach me there, of course, tylerchesser.com or coachwithtyler.com.
And Josh, please do me a favor. Tyler does not want to go out for a cup of coffee, but he'd love to show you a couple of deals. And you know what? If you pick up the phone and you ask him about, hey, how's the property? How's the market looking? He would definitely love to do that. But please, no coffee. Right, Tyler?
You know what? Bring me the coffee, but let's spend 5 or 10 minutes. I'll do that. I'm good.
I love that.
Well, listen, I want to thank Tyler for being an amazing guest on the show and sharing his movers and shakers story. If you want to be the next movers and shakers guest, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. And until next time, let's make it a movers and shakers week. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks, guys.